Good morning, and thank you for joining us here today in our worship time at the North Bloomfield United Methodist Church. Today we take a look at God's infinite wisdom in the way He created His created order. We read today from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, from chapter 13. Paul's very famous and very familiar hymn on the nature of love. And shall we listen to these words of the Apostle Paul as he speaks in 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all that I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the things of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. These words of the Apostle Paul as he spoke to the church in Corinth in chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians. My friends, in Shakespeare's tragedy King Lear, the opening scene, it shows a somewhat proud and very arrogant King Lear. He is now nearing the end of his life. There is a scene at the beginning where he is dividing his kingdom between his three daughters. And the criteria by which, the somewhat arrogant king chooses to, distribute his kingdom, it is put in the form of a question that is put to his three daughters, that essentially runs like this. He asks them, "How much do you love me?" And the two older wicked sisters, who really do not care a whit for the old man, they basically just lie through their teeth, and they embark on a very shameful, flowery putting on airs, expressing a false cavalcade of very, very untrue words and sentiments for the old man that on the surface of it sound really, really good. Oh, I love you more than the moon and the sun and the stars. And stuff like that. But the words mean absolutely nothing, because they really care nothing for the man. He is just a means to an end for them. He is just a means to power. And then, in that scene, the same question comes to his younger daughter, Cordelia, the youngest daughter. The daughter who does indeed, truly, and deeply love him. But Cordelia thinks to herself, before she answers, she thinks to herself, how can I ever put the deep love that I have for my own father into mere words? It is much too deep for words. Words could never ever do them justice. How could I speak it? How could I ever speak it? There are just no words adequate enough to describe how I feel for my father. And thinking this, she essentially replies, Sir, I cannot speak it. Upon which the arrogant king then says, Nothing? You can speak nothing? Well then, nothing shall come of nothing. And the arrogant king banishes Cordelia from the midst of the kingdom. And he is left with the newly divided kingdom, now headed up by his two eldest daughters, who, as we said before, they really don't care 2 cents much about him. And as time goes on, King Lear, now a deposed king, he is more and more and more, he is treated like dirt by these two daughters, who only wanted his power for their own selfish and self-centered ends and designs. King Lear, he realizes his tragic mistake in dividing his powers in the way that he did. And at the end, he wishes he could be reunited, and he could live with Cordelia, the daughter who does indeed truly love him. And it almost comes off, but in the end, it never does. And so ends Shakespeare's The Tragedy of King Lear. My friends, there is a certain sense in which the king of the universe was much, much wiser than King Lear when he put together his own created order. King Lear made an offer of his kingdom that obviously appealed to the enlightened self-interest, the selfishness, and the self-centered instincts of others. And the end result that he got for it was indeed tragic. Because in the end, that's mostly what he ended up getting. Enlightened self-interest instead of love. And my friends, God won't make the same mistake with human beings. As William Sloane Coffin, the great preacher, once said, God will not give human beings more reasons to make intelligently selfish decisions. God is not in the business of overcoming our selfishness by appealing to our selfish motives. And my friends, that is perhaps why there may not be any objective proof beyond a shadow of a doubt on this side of the grave for God's existence. We sometimes think to ourselves, God, just show me that there's a heaven that people go to if they're good. And boy, I'll be good. I'll be good. That'll be good enough for me. That'll be good enough for me. But God knows that you can't bribe people to love, You can't pay people to love. And you can't force people to love. And if you do, then it isn't love. It isn't love. It isn't authentic love. People love in life because they love. People love because they choose to love in life. It is a decision deeply rooted in compassion, a decision that is made in human freedom. Perhaps because God, who is pure love, is concerned about safeguarding the purity of love. My friends, there may be no objective proof beyond a shadow of a doubt for the existence of God or heaven on this side of the grave. Of course, one very important reason, often given for the silence of God or the absence of God, is because God must necessarily limit his freedom so that we can have our freedom in order to love. As William Sloane Coffin again said, he said, if love is the name of the game, then freedom is the absolute precondition. You can't have love without freedom. No freedom, no love. You can't have one without the other. Do you want proof of my existence or human freedom, says God? You can't have both. You can't have both. It's one or the other. But for love of us and our own capacity to love, God chooses to limit his freedom so that we can have our freedom in order to love and to experience joy. But alas, as we said before, God, who is pure love and pure compassion, is also concerned about maintaining the purity of love. And perhaps also for that reason, there will be no objective proof beyond a reasonable doubt for the existence of God. People love in life because they love, because they choose to love. For example, they see a late-night commercial on TV of a child starving in Biafra, and they are moved with deep compassion to do something for them. And the wife says to the husband, Jim, look, that's terrible. No one should ever have to live and suffer like that. That's awful. Jim, we should do something about that. Send a contribution or something to that hunger relief being advertised there. Why don't we do that? And they do. People love in life because they love. People love in life because they choose to love. To be the genuine article in life, love must be deeply rooted in compassion. And moved with compassion, love is a choice that is made in human freedom. And in a sense, God says, I will know how much you love me by how much you love those whom I love. For love of neighbor, it is the exact yardstick of our love for God. People love because they love. And love, in the end, is rooted in compassion. Again, you see, God, who is pure love and compassion, God is perhaps concerned about safeguarding the purity of love. I mean, if God has to bribe us to love, then, love becomes merely just a means to a higher end, our own enlightened self-interest. Very often, primarily the satisfaction of our own selfish and self-centered desires. We often say, God, just show me that there's a heaven that people go to if they're good, and I'll be good. That'll be good enough for me. But again, if God has to bribe us to love, if God has to pay us to love, if God has to force us to love, then it really isn't love in the end, is it? My friends, to be the genuine article in life, love is a decision. It is a choice. It is a choice that is rooted in compassion. My friends, if love becomes just a means to a reward, then goodness and love become just a means to an end, that of primarily achieving our own enlightened self-interest, our own personal selfish and self-centered agendas and designs, merely achieving a reward for ourselves. My friends, Paul's letter to the Corinthians says that the greatest of these is love. Love is the highest end of all of life itself. It is not a means to any other higher end, because it is the highest end of all of life itself. If the highest end of life becomes merely receiving a selfish reward, or primarily the fulfillment of our own personal, self-centered, and selfish desires, then, my friends, where in the world is the love in all of that? My friends, God's desire is to shape and to mold a boundless, loving community. Not just a band of Washington-style lobbyists and lobbyist types with their hands out always saying, "What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me?" As William Sloane Coffin once said, the goal of the Christian faith is not to save your soul, but to transcend our self-centeredness so that we can live in boundless, loving community with God and one another forever. My friends, let's look at it this way. The English word for love is defined by many different words in the Greek language, which was the language of the New Testament. The Greek word eros, or the word for erotic love, can be paraphrased in English as all take. The Greek word philia, the word from which the word Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, comes from, can be paraphrased as give and take. And the Greek word agape, the love that Jesus talked about in the Gospels, can be paraphrased as all give, all give. Now, my friends, God is smart enough and wise enough to know that you don't shape and mold an all-give community by appealing to people's all-take sentiments. Again, God is not in the business of overcoming our selfishness in life by appealing to our selfish motives. God won't give us more reasons to make intelligently selfish decisions in life. And that is perhaps another reason, besides God limiting his freedom so that we can have our freedom in order to love and experience joy, as to why there will be no objective proof beyond any shadow of a doubt for the existence of God. God, just show me that there's a heaven that people go to if they're good, and I'll be good. That's all I want. And if that's what it takes to make you love and to do good, then where in the world is the love in all of that? In the end, it's just merely enlightened self-interest. If you love only to get a reward, then what credit is that to you? Isn't that really just a form of enlightened self-interest? A sense of what's in it for me? Merely just a form of self-love? Jesus said in the Gospels to give expecting nothing in return. For love, it is a gift that is rooted in compassion. My friends, love is given without strings, given without thought of a reward. It is given for the sake of others and for the other. If we love only to receive a reward, then in that scenario, love is just a means to an end, a means to a higher end, instead of love being the highest end of life itself. The greatest of these is love, said the Apostle Paul. Love is the fullest expression of the aliveness of a human being created in the image of a loving God. We love to live, but we also live in order to love. And when we love, we are most fully alive. When we love, we experience the richness and the fullness and the beauty of life that God always intended for us. And so, my friends, there may be no objective proof beyond a shadow of a doubt for the existence of God. And this may be perhaps much to God's liking. In a way, it safeguards the purity of love by factoring out the enlightened self-interest in so many of our human attitudes and actions and motives in life. If you love in life only just to get a reward, then it really isn't love at all. Just a form of enlightened self-interest, a form of self-love. And though, my friends, there may be no objective proof beyond the shadow of a doubt for the existence of God, as every true believer knows, God can be experienced and known in the minds and in the hearts of his followers. But, my friends, there may be no objective proof beyond a shadow of a doubt for the existence of God. God, who is pure love and pure compassion, may be concerned about safeguarding the purity of human love. God doesn't want love all tinged with enlightened self-interest attached to it, with what's in it for me sentiments attached. He wants genuine love, love that is rooted in compassion. My friends, in life we love because we love. And if we fail to love, then God, in the mystery of his boundless, unfathomable love and his grace, God continues to love us. And then hopefully, love begets love. And my friends, God creates his boundless loving community based on real and authentic and genuine love, and not enlightened self-interest love or what's in it for me love, which in the end really isn't the genuine article. It really isn't love at all. Again, God, who is pure love, is concerned about safeguarding the purity of love. It has something to do in the end about doing the right thing and doing the right things for the right reasons. It is perhaps to keep his dream of a boundless loving community from degenerating into just a bunch of spoiled individuals with their hands out saying, "What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me?" My friends, even more than we do so even now. My friends, God does this perhaps to save us from our own worst selves. My friends, God is all wise. God is wise. He is wise in what he does. The God who taught us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves has obviously thought a few things through himself. In the end, we love because we love. Love is rooted in compassion. We love because we choose to love. My friends, there may be no objective proof beyond the shadow of a doubt for the existence of God. We love because we love, not merely not merely to receive a reward. Love is rooted in compassion, not in enlightened self-interest. It's all about doing the right things in life for all of the right reasons. As William Sloane Coffin again liked to say, in Jesus, the Word of God hits the world with the force of a hint. I will give you a hint as to what I am about, says God, and that hint is Jesus. That hint is Jesus. I will give you a hint, but there may be no objective proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. That only brings out the enlightened self-interest in everyone. And besides, you don't create an all-give community by appealing to people's all-take sentiments. My friends, Shakespeare's story of King Lear, it ended in tragedy. My friends, perhaps the king of the universe, he wants a different and a better ending for his story, the greatest story ever told. And that is perhaps why he is going about things in a different way. My friends, there may be no objective proof beyond the shadow of a doubt for the existence of God. For the king of the universe was perhaps much wiser than King Lear ever was. Amen. Amen. My friends, thank you for joining us here today as we took a look at God's infinite wisdom and the way he created his created order. My friends, I would like to thank all those who have continued to send their tithes and their offerings faithfully to the church during these very difficult times around the coronavirus pandemic. And if you would like to make an offering to the church, you are asked to make your check out to the church and to send them to the North Bloomfield United Methodist Church at Post Office Box 68. Or to send them to our financial secretary, Darlene Fenton, who lives at 9166 Plank Road, so that we might be able to continue our ministry at the church now and on into the future. My friends, thank you for being with us here today, and I hope that you will join with us again next Sunday. My friends, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being with us here this morning.